We'll wait.
Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Happy to get moving this afternoon. We've got a lot of things to get to today. I tell you what, man, we were joking the other day about I needed more time. Yeah, it's getting that way. I could lead with this story about Oklahoma State and their basketball team and how the NCAA is trying to basically make an example out of Oklahoma State, but we haven't had an opportunity to get a ruling on what's going on with Tennessee, even though they don't want to honor the contract of their coach because he got them into, quote, trouble with the NCAA. But you'll have everybody else that's going to say, hey, you know what? We've got, that's going to happen to Tennessee. Yeah. And Oklahoma State, though, their basketball team gets the hammer. We could get into that. We're going to talk about the college football bowl projections. Those have come, another set of those have come out. We're going to have some CFP reaction. We'll get into that too from the first set of rankings that were put out there. And it made you have some conversations with yourself if you're a college football fan. So we'll get into that. I got to start with Dan Mullen again today. Now, I know that there's some Florida fans that are going to get upset with me for the stuff that I said about Dan Mullen yesterday. Sorry, I don't really care. Dan Mullen, once again, is back at it. And you know what? Here's the weird thing about all this, okay? Dan Mullen said this about recruiting Monday in his press conference.
Coach, the topic of recruiting has come up a lot the last couple of days from a few angles. Is it a different approach needed for the level of consistency?
Well, we're in the season right now. We'll do recruiting after the season. And when it gets this recruiting time, we can talk about recruiting.
Sounds good.
Okay. Next question.
Yeah. So now then you come back and Mullen today has come out and said, I was misquoted. Wait, what? Yeah, that's pretty much what he has come out and said. Hey, I was kind of misquoted when it came down to that. Really? I want to read you the full statement here because it's interesting in its own right. So let me read you the full statement here from Dan Mullen today. And it's interesting to say the least. So let's see here. If because for some reason my printer didn't give me the other copy of that, so I'm having to find it on the fly here. But basically, where is it? Oh, goodness. Dan Mullen basically said, hey, I was misquoted. And that in the gist of it, hey, you know what? We recruit all the time. Do you? Do you really? Of course people do. We kind of get that. But the reality is that the way that he came about with this, it just looks silly. Here it is. He says he was, quote, taken out of context. Here's his exact quote. First, I'd like to touch on something for all the Gator Nation, all our great fans, of something that was taken out of context at Monday's press conference as it pertains to recruiting. Our staff recruits nonstop. We grind at recruiting every day. We're always recruiting and working the best to get great players that fit the Gator standard and bring them here to our program. And as I said on Monday, we just weren't going to get into the specifics of everything we do in recruiting and how we do all of that until after the season. Really? Really? When you look at Dan Mullen now, you have to look at everything from the perspective of when he says something, you just say, really? You said that? Okay. I'm telling you, Florida is a tire fire. A tire fire. Shane Beamer is looking for his signature win of the season. Gamecocks are a 20-point dog this weekend. He can get that signature win of the season, the one they'll make social media videos about, and they'll talk about how they beat Florida and all of that, regardless of how Florida finishes up. Okay? He could, in theory, get his signature SEC win this weekend. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that the way it comes out is that Florida, they could be the tire fire that we're talking about here. They could be the team that maybe finishes out losing the rest of the way on their schedule. You know who's really hungry to beat up on Florida is Florida State at the end of the season. I'm not saying Florida State is a team that is getting it right under Mike Norvell. I'm not saying that at all. I think the jury's still out on him. But man, we'll see. Biscuit says, honestly, that's what I thought he meant. Yeah, and I get that, but maybe you should come out and say that. There is also another piece of this when it comes to Dan Mullen that kind of wasn't talked about, and it may have been the fact that he's not a very polished speaker when he gets in front of people, which, you know, not everybody's polished. We get that. But he does have a show cause, I think it is until December, I think is what I read about that. But either way, it's just not looking really good at all. It really isn't. And it seems like every coach is basically slam dunking on Dan Mullen right now. Mike Norvell recently talked about recruiting, saying, really excited about the guys we've been able to bring here, as well as future classes. Says there's a lot of momentum and excitement about what FSU is doing. Even Eli Drinkowitz says it's heavy work week for the staff because you got to self-scout who you are, what's the problems, where do you get it fixed, who keeps attacking you the same ways, and then we got to recruit. We got to recruit. We got to recruit. And then we got to get ready for Vanderbilt. That's what he said last week. So you got all of that in the mix there. But I think that we're at the juncture now where Florida is a dumpster fire. They are the first tire fire of the season. So congratulations on that. I don't know if they're going to fire Dan Mullen or not, but it just doesn't look good. All right, let's look at the college football playoff rankings from last night. Lots of things to get into here, and I wrote some notes about this stuff. You know, we were talking yesterday, and of course, you can jump in anytime at 803-978-1832. Some of the more interesting things from last night, Oklahoma at 8? Now, the idea of a Power 5 team going through their conference schedule undefeated, yeah, and maybe not, shining like they should. The selection committee probably got it right about that, Oklahoma, because they pretty much slipwalked their way through the rankings. So if you look at the Oklahoma schedule, the wins against current AP top 25 are 0. They've got their average margin of victory is 12.4 points a game, which puts them basically, they have no wins over wins over Power 5 teams at 2. When you look at it from that perspective, Oklahoma is right on par with Wake Forest. I'm just giving you their resume. Now, I know that I'm not sitting here saying Wake Forest should be in the playoff. There's going to be a long way to go. Wake Forest could lose this weekend in North Carolina. And I'm not really, if they go through their schedule and they win the ACC title, and then we'll have that conversation about Wake Forest. So there's a lot of work to do. But Oklahoma, I thought, was ranked correctly. Now, Cincinnati at number 6, I don't really have a problem with that either. But you have to look at it from this perspective too. They've kind of done what the CFP committee asked for the group of 5 teams to do. 2 great years in a row. They've basically went through their schedule, and they got a win over a Power 5 team in Indiana, and then went and won at Notre Dame, which is a team that's ranked right up in there, right up in the mix. So with that, you can say, hey, they've done all that they can do. But in reality, I kind of like where they put them. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the teams that are up top there, you're going to have the Michigan States of the world that are 8-0, that are obviously ahead of them too. All of these teams are eventually going to play each other. And if Cincinnati keeps winning, they're going to eventually be in the move their way up. The committee basically made it almost like a fail-safe for them. They set it up where, okay, we put you here, you win. These other teams are going to play each other. They're going to knock each other off. Now, here's the other interesting thing from these rankings, and I'm going to put this out there, and I know people are going to be like, well, Rob, you're just being silly. When I look at number 13 on the rankings, you've got Auburn. Now, if the Tigers win out, they're going to have a resume that is outstanding. Their losses on the season are to number 1 Georgia and at Penn State. They already have wins against the number 16 team in the country, and 3 of their 4 games to end the year are against top 25 teams, including number 2 Alabama. And if they beat Alabama, guess what? They go to the SEC championship game where they get another shot at Georgia. Now, can they compete with Georgia? No, the first matchup they had, they got blown out. But if they could beat Georgia, how do you look at a 2-loss Auburn team that has a win over number 16, a win over, and then 3 wins over top 25 teams, including number 2 Alabama, and they beat the number 1 team in the country? It's really not that far-fetched. They're the SEC champion under that scenario. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying when I look at Auburn and the road they have in front of them, it's kind of hard, because if they do win out, they'll have that win over Georgia. Then you're going to have the argument of, wow, what happens to that Georgia team, who I think is the best team in the country? You slip up one week, though, it can happen to you. So we'll take your calls on all of this at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon. Some folks are upset that Alabama's number 2 behind Georgia. And by the way, the Cincinnati fans crying on Twitter is hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious to me. 803-978-1832. By the way, and I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, I know everybody that I know that's a sports fan was up late last night watching the World Series. Congratulations to the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series. First time since, 1995? You watch that Braves team, and I tell you what, man, it felt like I was a child again watching the Braves last night. It really, really did. Team that was under 500 in August, made some moves, and won the World Series. And you know what? The Washington Nationals, I retweeted this, by the way, at Rob Sounds Good. The Washington Nationals tweeted out a congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. And you know what? That's kind of a rivalry there for the Braves. But, there were a lot of Dodgers fans who were upset over the whole Houston thing. I think that's something that franchise will never get over. In my mind, when I think Houston, I think cheaters. Simple as that. So, congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. If you want to call up and talk about that, we'll take that call as well. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Auburn plays this weekend against Texas A&M. And it is, the 3:30 matchup on for the SEC. So, it's their marquee matchup. That's going to be the one that it's a knockout game, basically. It really is. Texas A&M could knock Auburn completely out of the mix of making the CFP. And here's the other thing that's interesting with that is that if Auburn does win, man, it's really setting up for that Iron Bowl to be really, really crazy. It really, really is. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Brandon says he thinks Texas A&M is the best SEC team other than Georgia and Alabama. Okay. Can definitely, I can kind of see that. We'll have to see how that goes. Biscuit says, who cares what a sports writer thought at a moment in time? Fair enough. Steve says, Braves shut Astros out twice. Yeah. And the Braves got them a lot of their runs by, I think it was 70% of their runs via the home run. So there's that. 803-978-1832. Did you agree with the CFP top four? Am I making some silliness here with my idea that Auburn could be the first two-loss SEC team, the first two-loss team in the country to go into the college football playoff? Now, there's a heck of a road ahead of them. Georgia's already beaten them once, so the idea that Georgia could beat them again is definitely, they dominated that game. Absolutely dominated that game. Bo Nix was running all around like a chicken with his head cut off. But if they can get that win, wow. If you end up with an undefeated Oklahoma, an undefeated Cincinnati, an undefeated Michigan State, undefeated Wake Forest, and you got a two-loss SEC champion that went through that schedule, I'm sorry, I'm taking Auburn just because of the schedule that they went through. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. We'll take your calls this afternoon, get your thoughts on that. Of course, South Carolina this weekend is a 20-point dog to Florida, as their program is a tire fire right now. Do you think Dan Mullen's going to be shown the door? Or do you think he's going to leave on his own? I get the vibe that he just doesn't like recruiting. Eight 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is a number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, we're going to look at some bowl projections. I've got those as well. And we're going to get into the NCAA and how it is a gong show. An absolute gong show the NCAA is. One of the other teams that looked well in the CFP last night was Mississippi State. Not ranked in the top 25. The Bulldogs have wins against three teams currently ranked in the poll: A&M, Kentucky, and NC State. Maybe we should give the Pirates some credit. The CFP committee did. Just saying. I don't know if I really want to go with that whole thing of Kentucky, because I don't think Kentucky is that good at all. But we shall see. Biscuit says, no way. What's his buyout? I got to check on his buyout. I had that written down earlier. We'll have to look. Anyway, taking your calls at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Baylor Man hit me with a hashtag candy corn. No, I'm not feeling that. Not feeling that at all. All right, out to the phones we'll go in a little bit. 803-978-1832. We'll take a quick break, and we come back. We'll have lots more for you here today on The Rundown, here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, you can find us on the iHeartRadio app. You can find us on the podcast. We appreciate folks downloading that. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, just look for The Rundown with Rob. More of The Rundown when we return here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Egg Bowl might be good this year. Yeah, for Clemson to win the Atlantic, they need NC State to drop 2 more games. Special guest on the phone, and it's not Hollywood. I want to take a guess who's got it. Nope. Nope. Welcome back to the rundown. Let's head out to the phones. Mr. Carolina Jackpot's on the line. Jackpot, what's up, buddy?
Rob, how's everybody doing this afternoon?
It is wonderful down here in the city of Columbia. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. Hopefully I don't lose you guys. I'm headed between Winsboro and Newberry, South Carolina, which is God's country, but also kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, I just wanted to call in and chime in on this playoff talk. First of all, I can't believe the Gamecocks weren't in the top 25, but oh well. There's always next week, right?
Next week, I mean, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Go out and put up a good performance this week. But now what I want to talk about, a lot of people it seems like I addressed this on a video last night, that they really get a bee in their bonnet over nothing. This is the first playoff ranking. There's going to be, 5 or 6 more?
Yeah. Before
the thing is finalized. Why does everybody, get so upset after one round of this stuff being dished out? And I want to talk something else too. Everybody say, well, Cincinnati got the shaft. Cincinnati got treated like all the other Group of 5 teams. Poor Cincinnati. They beat Notre Dame. But look, Cincinnati got put where they should have been. Cincinnati, like I talked about, needed to go out every week and demolish teams. They had to demolish teams and win by margin. They haven't been doing that. They've went out the past 2 weeks and poo-pooed on the 50-yard line against 2 one-win teams in their conference. They're not going to put them in the playoffs with that kind of resume. Not right now, anyway. They're not going to be in that. They're not going to be in consideration. So I think they got it right. I would have probably put Alabama in at like number 3 instead of number 2, just because of the fact somebody's going to cry about it. But I think they pretty much nailed that and got it right. Alabama does have one loss, yeah, but their loss was a it was to a number 13 team, and that loss looks a little bit better right now than what it actually looked like when it happened. So, and I'm sure that they weigh in, not just the fact that it's Alabama, but the fact that this is the defending national champions. They have been national champions, at least 2 out of the last 4 years, been to every college football playoff. So, I mean, and that's going to weigh into it.
Not to cut you off, but they lost by a field goal. It wasn't like Texas A&M hammered them. They lost by a field goal. So it's not
Correct.
like Alabama was just beat senseless. So there's that too. But my thoughts on Auburn kind of controls their own destiny. They win out. They'll have a win over Alabama, a win over Georgia in the championship game. I think that's the best resume for a 2-loss team to get into the playoffs. Do you agree?
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I mean that's the only way that it would happen. if they win that side of the SEC. But I don't know. I mean, it's fun to talk about, but I don't see a basically first year head coach beating Nick Saban, even though that game's at home. I just don't.
Well, to quote Vince McMahon, it's mental masturbation. That's basically what it is.
True.
That's
true.
very true.
True.
It's something to talk about, but yeah, you're right. I don't know why people are so upset. I don't get it, but it is, the Cincinnati fans on Twitter are really funny right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad to know they got fans. I wanted to bring up something else too.
Sure.
And this may be a day late and a dollar short, but I know Monday we had a caller who called in there and actually had the audacity to suggest that Shane Beamer was given the opportunity to coach at South Carolina that a minority candidate wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to because they had no experience. Is that you recall that?
I do recall that, and a lot of callers took
I got to thinking about something after that, and how do I verbalize this? Does this idiot know that the only reason that he got that job, or one of the main reasons he got it, was because he had tons and tons of support from former players who pushed for him to get that position, and most of them were African American.
Yeah, I said this on the show the other day, and I firmly believe this. South Carolina is a team that I think that the fan base and even the administration, they would hire a zebra if the zebra was going to lead them to a championship. I honestly don't think we're at the point in our lives now where just because you are of a different color that, you know, people are going to look at you differently. How about this? How about we take what you've done?
They would hire a unicorn with one eye and a cloved hoof if it could win a football championship. If they could do something besides get past the bowl game.
Yeah. I mean, I fully believe that, and I think it comes back down to winning and money, and I'll stand behind that. I really, really will. And it just, when you have something like what happened at Florida State, where apparently they put out, hey, you know, we hired a minority candidate. When that's out there as a badge, I mean, does that coach really want that? How about I'm just the coach at Florida State? Let's just go with that. That works out well for me. Bobby Bowden endorsed him. What the hell else do you want? I mean, I don't get it. I really, really don't get it.
Exactly. Well, Rob, I'm going to let you take some more callers here, and I'll hang up and try to listen to the rest of the show as long as I don't get too far in the weeds.
All right, stay safe, my friend. We'll talk to you later on. All right, there you go. Carolina Jackpot joining the show. We appreciate him calling the program. Of course, you can call the program as well, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. He made a lot of good points about Cincinnati and the rest of the college football playoff. You know, I stand by what I said with Auburn. If they win out, I think they're the best case ever for a 2-loss team to make the football playoff. One more call here. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, this is the Biscuit.
Hello there, Producer Biscuit. What you got?
Producer Biscuit. I like the title. I'll keep it. That's cool. So I'm PB. But no, a couple of things I wanted to touch on. So the Mullen thing. When Mullen made those comments, I mean, I know Mullen is a clown, but when he made those comments, I thought the same thing. I thought he wasn't saying that he doesn't recruit all year, because if he didn't, he would finish in the bottom 30 in the entire country. He was just saying that I'm not going to touch on that right now because it's not the season for it, i.e. it's not signing day, and I have football to coach, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. That's the way I took it. And then the media blew it out of proportion just because they saw blood and they attacked.
Well, and to be honest, a lot of it was the media, and then they went to SEC coaches, and the SEC coaches basically put out their thoughts on how they recruit, and it just sounded different than what Mullen was saying, even though I think that everybody understands that
for them is what it is.
Right,
I mean,
but Mullen, if you look at their recruiting classes, I mean, they're consistently in the top 15. It's not like they're falling off the planet.
Right.
So,
if you don't recruit all year, you're not going to be 12 or 13 or whatever they are.
but
I mean, there's no
in
way.
your heart of hearts, take
It's
away your
absurd.
absolute bias and everything else. Do you think that Dan Mullen likes recruiting?
No.
I don't either. I think he wants to be in the NFL.
No. And I think it needs to improve, but obviously, because when you're finishing 12th to 15th, you're finishing 8th in the SEC probably, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's not going to get you where you need to be.
I agree with you, sir. What else you got?
So yesterday, a fan, this is one of the points that really ticks me off sometimes, is a fan will compare Mark Richt to Kirby Smart. And that is such amateur hour comparison, just because they look up a record, and Mark Richt started his career, his first 6 years, his record looked really good. And I think he was still a really good coach for the first 6 years, and then became just a pretty good coach down in the last 10 years.
Right.
But I can't stand that argument, because it does two things. What it does is it's belittling Kirby Smart, and then it's also belittling Mark Richt as though he was a bad coach. He was a good coach. If you look at the comparisons between the two, one comparison would be this. In his career, Mark Richt finished in the top 7 in the country 5 times. If Kirby Smart this year finishes in the top 7, which is looking pretty good, that would be his 5th year in a row. So he's done it five times in 6 years. And the competition level and the number of top 10 games that Georgia's had since Kirby Smart has been there has been much higher than when Mark Richt was there. There's a great video that the college football nerds do on YouTube. They went back over the summer and did a comparison of Kirby Smart to Mark Richt to debunk this. They're Alabama fans, and they did this to debunk this myth. And they make up they bring in a bunch of great points if you get a chance to go watch that.
Well,
and
to be honest, the SEC is different now than it was when Richt was coaching. I think that's a fair thing to go with too. They touch
on that video, actually, and they touch on the fact that Mark Richt benefited a lot from they changed the schedule over during his tenure early on in his career. They changed it in 2005. They changed it from 11 games a season to 12, and it added on another easier game. So you hear and then you'll hear these guys call in like yesterday. I think he said that Mark Richt won 80% of his games. No, he didn't. He won about 7, and this is going to sound funny, but he won 74% of his games, and he won 69% or 68%, something like that, of his SEC games. There's a huge difference, by the way, between 74 and 80 when you talk over a season of 15 seasons of 200 games.
I agree with you that it's not really a fair comparison. I think I said that yesterday on the show too, because I kind of felt the same way. I mean, I really, really did. But I just like Mark Richt as a person, and I know that you can't really hold that into account. But I do agree with what you're saying. It's not really the fairest of statements to compare the two.
No, but what's also happened over time is kind of revisionist history. Is now people are saying, well, they talk about him like he was a really bad coach, and he wasn't. He was actually a very good coach. I think his career record was like 145 and 51. So he was winning almost 75% of his games. Now, he had a lot of clunkers, during his seasons. I mean, he like in 2007, they had a tremendously talented team with Matt Stafford and O'Shawn Marino, et cetera, et cetera. And then they lost 2 games to South Carolina and got blown out. They were down. I was at the game. I was in Neyland Stadium in Tennessee. We were down 28-0 at halftime in a game that they had no business playing with Georgia that year. So, I mean, he couldn't get the team up consistently like the way Nick Saban does, and the way Kirby seems to be able to do now. The last thing I wanted to touch on, if you don't mind, I know my call's been long here, but is just the rankings. I think the CFP does a great job, and and I looked at what they say. There's some argument where you could rotate Alabama and Michigan State, maybe just based on what their results were, maybe, but that's not a big deal. It's 2 and 3, and then Cincinnati has an argument maybe if you're just looking purely at resume to be over Ohio State, even though I think Ohio State would beat Cincinnati, because Ohio State beat the 20th ranked team and lost to the 4th, but Cincy beat the 10th. So, I mean, but Cincy down the stretch here hasn't looked very good. But there's not a lot of argument. And Oklahoma got put in their place.
Well,
where they belong.
I personally like the fact that they put Oregon ahead of Ohio State because of the head-to-head, and I think that's important. I mean, I think the head-to-head is...
that too. And I like the fact that they seem to do one consistent thing, is regardless of wins and losses and stuff, they reward teams for playing good teams.
Yeah. My one question for you before you go, and I got to get to a break, but did you like my theory that Auburn could be the first 2-loss team to go if they win out? I mean, look at the wins that they'll have.
I don't think there's any doubt if they win out, they'd be in. I don't think there's any doubt.
But then that puts you into a predicament, though, because I think Georgia's going to, in theory, win out. If they lose to Auburn, and then all of a sudden, hey, you've agreed we put Auburn in. If you've got these other undefeated Power 5 teams in a Michigan State and Oklahoma, a Cincinnati team as well, and it's just it's going to muddy the water a lot if that happens. I mean, it really, really is, because I still think even if Georgia loses to Auburn, they can still say, you know what, we played them and won by 24 before. You know what I'm saying?
In their house.
It's just,
that's the thing. If you get to that point, Auburn is probably going to be ranked 3 or 4.
Right.
And if Georgia loses to them, they might move up to, they're going to be in that range, and that's still that becomes a quality win for them.
Right.
Too,
but I think a team like Michigan State, though, if they can win out, and then if they get a win over Ohio State, they should probably be there. I mean, are we going to move Oregon out? Or, I mean, there's so many things, and that's what's great about college football, is that we really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's the ultimate soap opera.
Yeah, that's probably the nightmare scenario for them. But I could see both Auburn and Georgia getting even with 2 losses.
All right, man. Appreciate it. I got to go to a break. Thanks so much, Biscuit.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
All right, quick break. We come back. We'll have more for you here on the Rundown. Line up your calls, 803-978-1832. We'll be right back on Fox Sports Radio 1400. You might be right there, Mr. Tide. You know, the BCS, by the way, when you go back and you look at that, you can make an argument that the SEC benefited from that, but the Big 12 obviously did too. Dakota, I'm in studio today. I do studio show Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then I do the podcast with my buddy Jackpot on Wednesday and Sunday. Also do a studio show. I stream that, but it's on the VOC YouTube page. And that's on, what day? That's on Sunday. So, or excuse me, Saturday after the Gamecock game. So I could do this show at home. I really, really could. Yeah, I do like a little video cast with a couple of my LSU friends. That's in a Facebook group, but that's just that's just kind of for fun, to be honest. Yeah, I'm in Jackpot's living room. No, this is the actual studio here. You guys are hilarious. I may walk down the hall with my my camera during the next break. I might do that. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. Some comments from the folks in the chat room. He says, Alan says that I moonwalk better than Michael Jackson. Yeah, I admit when I'm wrong. Unlike some folks you hear on the radio, they're like, oh, I'm the end all be all. Now, I admit when I'm wrong. I admit that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. I want to look at some bowl projections really quickly here. We got to go to a break because I went a little long. Biscuit's got to learn to shut the hell up a little bit. Just picking Biscuit. I let the segment roll too long myself. But some of the interesting bowl projections. Armed Forces Bowl. They finally got it right. UTEP and Army have a team from one of the armed forces in your bowl game. If your bowl game's the Armed Forces Bowl, I like it. Some of the other matchups as we roll along here. They've got Wake Forest projected to go to the Holiday Bowl. Okay, terrific. Charlotte and ULM in the Lending Tree Bowl. Coastal Carolina in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. In the against FAU. Some other matchups, Maryland and Northern Illinois in the Quick Lane Bowl. We have too many bowls, by the way. Boston College projected to go to the Military Bowl against UCF. I don't know if I want to watch that or not. Eastern Michigan and Wyoming in the Birmingham Bowl. Ugh, that's terrible. The Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. Clemson and Mizzou. A couple of underachieving Tiger teams. Now, when I look at those projections, though, and I look at the rest of Mizzou's schedule, it makes me think these guys don't know what they're talking about. Mizzou has one of the worst Power 5 defenses in the country, and the only game they have left that's winnable on their schedule is the South Carolina game. They're currently sitting at 4 wins. So I don't really see that happening. I don't really see that happening at all. Rob online says Clemson's losing to South Carolina. I don't think so, sir. But at least this year, the game will be interesting. You're not going into it thinking, will Clemson cover the spread this year? The spread, by the way, in Las Vegas is at like 17 points. I would probably take South Carolina with the points there because I don't see Clemson covering the spread against anybody because that offense is anemic. It really is. But Shane Beamer's kind of set himself up to a point where he could, in theory, have 2 wins if he could pull off the shocker against Florida this weekend and get South Carolina, get that matchup against Clemson. If the Gamecocks finish 6-6 with wins over those 2 teams, they may rename it Beamer Boulevard down there. I don't know. All right, final break of the show. When we come back, we'll finish looking at these, and then we'll have another example of why the NCAA is terrible. All of that in just a moment on the Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. We'll be right back. Right now, this is Rob. Hey, man, how are you? I can flip my camera or not. All right, I'm going to take you guys around here just for a second. Let you look. So here we go. I got 2 minutes. There you go. There's the studio here. Big board up there. TV, logo. This is Traffic Studio. This is my production studio that I work in during the day. I put stuff together. If you can see here, this is we've got like walls of computers here with all kind of stuff. Yeehaw. So this controls the radio station. You can see that's our FM station there. This is all the stuff I use for editing, my Photoshop computer. There's Angie Records. I'm showing them the studio.
Who are you showing?
My people that are watching my show. So
Hello, Rob's people.
Hello, Andy. Andy has a great voice. Anyway, here's all of our other studios. Throwback, WNOK. There's Ed Sheeran. Yeehaw. Junk everywhere, like junk all over. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here's where I, hold on. Let's see here. Oh, there's where I won an AP award. Look, my name is on it. Boom. That's when I did news. Imagine that. Lawton's in the same room that I'm in, which is right here. So there you go with that. Give you a little bit of a tour there. All right, Hollywood's on the line. Uh-oh. Yeah, I do the show with Pops in the studio across the hall. Yep. If I have the TV on, I'll watch TV, Blake, and it's like, ugh. Give you guys a little tour there. Oh, hold on. The bookcase of accountability. You'll make me show them the bookcase of accountability. After Hollywood's call. After Hollywood's call, I'll show you the bookcase of accountability. Welcome back to the rundown. Out to the phones we go. Hollywood, welcome to the program.
Evidently, you still sipping on that wine from last night after Atlanta Braves won the World Series. And you think for 1 minute that South Carolina going to beat Florida. It's not going to happen.
You were telling me the same thing about Kentucky and Georgia. I mean, it's really hard to take you seriously, sir.
I listened to you for a whole hour.
Sure.
Mostly talking about Dan Mullen. You and who was that? Is Hamburger, Biscuit, who was there?
Actually, I didn't know. I talked about 5 minutes about Dan Mullen because it's one of the big stories in college football.
Dumpster fire. The dumpster fire of South Carolina is a dumpster fire.
Dan Mullen is a synonym for dumb. That's pretty much what he boils down to right now with the way he's acting.
All he do is just win football games.
Yeah, he's won a hell of a lot of them this year. Won a lot of them this year.
Well, he lost 3. Well, he lost 4.
He's lost 4 games, sir.
4 games. 4 games.
Okay.
In that South Carolina Clemson game, both of them suck. So what's the difference?
Look, you should be more worried about your team and the fact that there's reports down there from several folks that he may have lost the locker room. If he loses the locker room, I'm just saying things.
I don't listen to that crap.
Okay. I mean,
I don't listen to that crap.
Well, I mean,
he'll be down here this week. Won't you ask him? And Rob, what's this show after game show on Saturday?
Yeah, the 5th quarter post game show. I do a pregame and post game with Christopher Thompson and the folks over there. You're welcome to call that show.
Oh, I will. Now, what is that number?
It's on. It'll be on the WVOC Facebook and YouTube page. You can check it out there. I don't have the number in front of me, so.
Yeah, I used to call that show the 5th quarter.
Yeah, well, you should
Yeah.
call. You should call, and either
That's
way,
when
man, let us know
when
what your
Tracy
feelings
was
are.
on it at the time.
Yeah, be fine. We'll
Yeah.
work it out.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna be calling.
Okay, well,
With a
have
victory.
fun with that. Hey, will you admit when you call if South Carolina loses that Mullen's lost the locker room?
It ain't gonna happen. Oh, when South Carolina lose?
Yeah,
They're gonna lose.
if South Carolina wins and Florida loses, will you admit that Mullen may have lost the locker room?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
We'll see. We're gonna dog those. We're gonna dog those guys down.
Well,
We're gonna dog them.
I look forward to your call on Saturday, sir.
No doubt.
Thank you very much, man. All right, there you go. All right, well, there you go with that. Hollywood thinks that all we talk about is Dan Mullen. It's not true. I've talked about bowl projections. I've talked about the college football playoff. And I've got this story where the NCAA is silly. So they put Oklahoma State on probation and banned them from the postseason tournament, where Oklahoma State said they believe they're the first time a school has received a postseason ban despite no violations in the areas of institutional control, failure to monitor recruiting, head coach accountability, participation of an ineligible athlete, or academic fraud. So they didn't do any of that, but they got banned from the postseason. Coach Mike Boynton, former Gamecock, says it was a single NCAA violation. One player received $300. One player, not a recruit, not a future recruit, not a family member. One current player received $300. And in and of itself, because it was self-reported by us, it's a secondary violation. So the punishment is you pay the money back, serve your suspension, which the kid did, and you move on. Here's the thing with this. You don't think that there's all kinds of payments going on in college basketball? Seriously? That's kind of the one thing that is happening out there. You had the committee to, work on college basketball. They came back and basically said the same thing. But you got to figure it out. There is money that changes hands. It's not that far-fetched. Okay? They are getting a postseason ban out of it, and I don't know if what Oklahoma State is telling us is correct, if it's just $300. I don't know. What I do know is that the University of Tennessee fired their coach and refused to pay him his buyout because they are, quote, facing these crazy, crazy sanctions. Where's your report on Tennessee there, bud? How about telling us that the university that admits that their coach gave money to people with in McDonald's bags, that's out there. They admit that their coach got them into major NCAA trouble, which is why they won't pay him his $12 million buyout. Yeah, but we can't get a ruling on that. The NCAA needs to just fold. Seriously. Your level of enforcement is insane. This is the same group that penalized South Carolina for too much frosting on a cookie. You're an absolute disgrace to college athletics. And the stuff that you put young men through is insane. Am I cleared? Am I not cleared? They don't care about the student athlete. If they did, they would give us rulings in a more timely manner. And you know what? Come out and actually make statements about why you did it. Don't just do your rulings and then go hide back under your rock. Before I leave this planet, I think the NCAA is going to fold. And when that does, I want to have my my big pig picking barbecue across the street from a PETA rally. Serious. I want all of that to happen at once. That way I can offend just about everybody. It's a mess. An absolute mess. Tomorrow on the program, we'll start looking at the weekend's games. Working on getting some beat writers on that cover, of course, Louisville and the Florida Gators. We'll have all of that tomorrow for you here on the Rundown. Shout out to everyone that got involved with the show today. We appreciate it as always. You guys are awesome. Remember, the podcast is up, or it will be up at about what, 5 o'clock today? So there's that. We'll have more of the Rundown for you tomorrow here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, I got to show the bookcase of accountability to Beg and Megan here. There's the bookcase of accountability. All the stuff that I keep and print out, in addition to different books and everything else. And there's your trash can, the Beg and Megan trash can. It's right there. But there's the bookcase of accountability. It's got all the stuff I print out from the football season that I think is worthy of keeping. So there you go, Beg and Megan. There you go.
Overcome erectile
All right,
dysfunction.
appreciate you guys, man.
Question
We'll see you
is,
later on.
what are you waiting for? Live the life you want today.